just do it then.
Hello everyone, welcome. We are back, we are back in the campaign of Odes, where these four fearless players and their associated characters are adventuring across the land from one side of the continent to the other. And at the end of the last session, we came to a conclusion of one adventure, but there was some dice rolling involved, some leveling up involved. But then we often have a period before the next adventure when the characters deal with things within the town of Lindo, which is their sort of like base town, and they sort of like to sort of like bring together a whole load of points of the storyline, etc., etc. So tonight's adventure or session will be some of that, with various role playing, the characters going on, plus the start of a new session as well, a new adventure where the party will be flung into maybe another Frog Fen, we never know. But before we go on, I'm going to allow the players an opportunity to say who they are and who their character is that they are playing tonight.
Hello, is it working?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Hello, my name is Longshanks EPG, and tonight I'm playing Hengist, the group's professional warrior, heavy armor, sword, shield. That's it. We were told to keep it brief.
Okay.
Well, in that case, I'm just. Hi,
my name is Bob.
I play our group's theist, Bartleby Fumus. I serve the White Moon Goddess Amriel, who gives me powers of healing, protection, light, and prevention of disease and poison. Throwing the microphone on to.
Hi everybody, I'm Medivac, and I play.
That is so loud in my...
I know.
Oh, sorry. Am I loud tonight?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I play Medivac, and I'm a nomad. I play Hasra Khan, sorry.
This is going to be a good session.
He even got it on his t-shirt.
Yeah, well, my name's Medivac.
I'm Hasra Khan, and I play a human called Medivac. He's a nomad from the steppes, needs his group scout and go-to hero fighter. And with that, I shall pass it on to Chugga
Thank you. I'm Chugwugger, and I play Gulliver, the apprentice sorcerer. He is in the Order of the Kraken, which is one of the four sorcery orders on Odes. And his spells involve around communication, transportation, and teleportation. And I should pass on to inwils.
Excellent, thank you very much. Short and brief, that's how we like it, especially when we've got a packed session. It is, yeah. So the party have been adventuring all over the continent of Odes, and they're back into their favourite town. Well, they're probably your favourite town. Is it your favourite town? No, I think Hasra and Hengist, you probably have another favourite town apart from this one.
Aylesford?
Not
Where
Aylesford.
well, the pigs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Where you're lump hefting champ.
We are.
Which is, I'm trying to remember what it was.
We had to roll a giant pig.
I know that. No, Aylesford was the town that you arrived at. That was all.
Thorson.
Thorson, yeah.
That's
Thorson.
right. Well done.
Yeah. Well done. Have you got that written down, Mr. Pickles?
Yeah, that was one of my favorite towns. This session is just plastered with lump hefting.
Oh, that's where you met your strange woman as well, wasn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, and there was
made
somebody
you
named Dave.
nervous.
As a side note,
He took you in and gave you breakfast.
you should have said, no, I've not got it written down. I just enjoyed the adventure so much, I remembered it.
Excellent. So you've come back to Lindo. They have been accompanied back to Lindo with Lord Dresden's daughter, who is called Briar, and Briar has appeared into the adventure in two folds. Bartleby currently wears a bracelet and what can only be called a funeral mask. And the party are currently looking for a golden torque to complete the triad of items that will allow them to get to a dragon or somebody called Cassini. Unfortunately, Bri has it round her neck. But they've also come across Bri in another way, in the sense that she has long blonde hair, and various dreams have been coming to various people about that. She's often seen as some kind part of the incantation required to bring the Chaos Mother back to this world. The party got rather beaten up in the last adventure. Bartleby nearly lost an arm. Briar herself was dropped coming down the stairs and had internal injuries. Hengist got beaten up as well. Gulliver got left against a screaming demon horde. Frog Batrachian horde. And they sort of like limped back to Linda at the end of last adventure. Luckily for the party, Bartleby is a member of an order of thesis, clerics for want of a better word, and healing was administered by the priests, so no arms have been removed or lost. The party in between now and then have actually replenished their stocks, their stores, and hopefully they've removed any payment that they've made, so we're not going to spend any time with that tonight. That's all done and dusted, and I trust them a lot. And remember, there's only silver, there's no other thing.
The 2 million silver pieces that I have left.
That's it. So Gulliver, Hasra and Bartleby sorted out their experience rolls last session, but Hengist has still got his to do at this session. So over to you, Hengist.
So Hengist is going to use one of his experience rolls on his, well, both of them on endurance, but I'll do one at a time.
So that'll be your, what's your normal endurance skill?
At the moment it is 62.
And your intelligence being?
Intelligence is 11.
11. Cool. So you roll a 1d100, add your intelligence onto it, and we try to get higher than 62.
Pachow.
63, so that's a 1d4 plus 1.
1d... Oh, no, hang on. Let's do it this way. 1d4 plus 1. 3.
So that's 3. So now a 1d100 plus 11, and we're now going for 60s. I don't need customs.
Your dice is made out of very poor quality plastic.
There you go. Right, so let's do the one.
It's now 66 or above you need.
Yeah.
No, so that'll go up to 67. Okay, so that's done and dusted. So what we're going to do, we're going to zip along to the fast. The first thing I'm going to do, guys, is that I'm going to put you into your favourite tavern. The one that you absolutely love and adore, which of course is the Hairy Hobgoblin in Lindo. And I thought it would be a good time to assume that you've got to the point that you've been healed, you've had some time to rest out yourselves, and you've come back to sort of like group together to reminisce and to talk about what's been going on and whether or not you can start to piece things together. Now, one thing that you know about the Hairy Hobgoblin and Basil's Pub Tavern is that it's nice and noisy. There won't be a lot of people listening into your conversation, so you can have a good discussion here. And so I will hand it over to you guys. There seems to be 3 members of guard at the bar. Can I just say that I don't know why they're there, but
it was from the last encounter when one of them was making fun of.
Yes, I remember. So you are all there, and you may now have a conversation about things which have happened, anything that you want to link together.
Yes, I will. Hello, my friends, and I'm so glad you're all alive here. I have never met this Sylvester Macoun. Could somebody please tell me who he might be?
You've never met Sylvester?
No, I joined you here in Lindo.
I think out of everybody, then, Hasra, you're probably the luckiest.
Is he an unsavory character?
He's a
More
delight.
grumpy.
Oh, I see.
Oh, he's not grumpy.
He's very abrupt.
Oh,
And shop proud.
yes, there was a member of my tribe that was like that. We called him. Well, it doesn't matter right now. But yes, I understand what you mean. He's very yes.
Doesn't like you touching his wares.
He's a cartographer.
Ah, right.
He deals in maps, and I don't think there's anything that he likes better than maps.
Likes insulting you, Gully, quite a lot.
Well,
Perhaps my memory has slipped. Was he the gentleman we went to go see before we went through the water gate that took us to the far away?
Yes, it was Hasra.
Ah, thank you. That's fine. Thank you. I do know him now. Yes, and I understand what you say.
but I don't know why we need to go to see him. If he already knows about, well, this Chaos Mother, maybe he has a map. Maybe not.
Weren't we supposed to go talk to Sylvester because of Lord Drayton's request?
That is correct.
Map that we need. And
Perhaps he may also. Sorry, Bartleby.
it's okay. Did anybody else notice the golden necklace on Brad?
But just to let you know, Bartleby's trying to somehow fit a bit of bread in between the little cup thing. That actually, he keeps on like getting us. He sort of like gets the spoon, the broth into his hand, and then he just like tips his head back.
Do we see it every so often just dribbling down his chin?
From the knees of the mask.
I take it the table sort of like our table must be getting a fair bit of
Notice.
looking sort of like sideways, especially if we have Bartleby there wearing this
Yeah, and it's
metal.
it's sort of like people who are sort of like walking by, sort of like keep sort of like looking over at him, and every now and again, Bartleby, you sort of like get this feeling that you're being watched, and you sort of like go, you know, and so because with the mask on, your peripheral vision is quite limited, so you're a bit like a horse with blinkers, you know, and but every time you sort of like notice or any of you sort of like see somebody looking at Bartleby, you sort of like turn around and sort of like look at them, and they suddenly sort of like, you know, look the other way or something like that. Luckily there's no children around to scare or anything like that, and
As I'll probably say, it's all right. He's a thespian. He's a character actor.
But Bartleby's been quite clever about his positioning. Because as you notice where he sat at the table, he has his back to the majority of the tavern's occupants. So it's only people who are at the bar, you know, and the barmaid, and the barmaids have probably seen a lot worse than this, you know, in their dealings within the hairy hobgoblin.
Gunnar was going to say, did anybody get a chance to talk to Bruria on the way back to see whether or not they could find out anything about her talk that she had on?
I was too scared. You can't really.
What if it's like you, and she can't take it off?
But what if it isn't like me and it's just me being a person on the road asking about beautiful jewelry? She'll think I'm trying to rob her.
Or propose to her.
Or propose to her.
But what I don't understand about it is what dictates whether or not it keeps on or it doesn't keep on.
I thought in the books we read, it would either take removing the body part or Cassini's Grace. Remove these.
To
I
take
don't
it
really
off.
chop off anybody's head.
But what about putting it on? Because she's already got the talk on. But she can't have had it on since she was born, because otherwise it would have come off really, really easy because her head would have been too small.
Yeah, but
So it's
these
obviously
things
been
kind
put
of
on,
they kind of fit
But
to your
you put on, it
skin.
must
It's
have
not
belonged
much
to
of a
somebody
choice.
else before that, but they've managed to take it off.
Unless it's
Perhaps,
Unless they've died or it's been had the head chopped off.
or perhaps it only works for certain people, Gully.
But mate,
Perhaps,
yeah, that's it.
perhaps a bit. It's a bit like
Maybe
a normal piece of clothing.
It's a bit like those stones that we found that only certain people could hold.
Are you talking about the one that turned your
I
arm
think
black?
I think it's. I think anything like that is just to stop thieves taking it, Hasra.
No, I'm sure there is some other motive than that, because there are no. I cannot imagine a thief wanting just a petty stone.
So are we going to have to take her with us then? And
Have any of you seen her lately? Do we know where she is in this town?
she went
was
to
staying with Sylvester.
That's right. She was told by her father to go to stay with Sylvester, wasn't it? Or maybe I misheard.
She went to the wealthier part of town.
Correct. And if you remember, I'll just whack you over there. So if you remember, this is Lindo, and number one, if you can see number one on it, that's where the hairy hobgoblin is. And yeah, that's right. Number two up there is the McDuffs.
Ika's
They still owe us money.
Ika's gaff.
Who's you saw her father being assassinated in the streets of Lindo, if you remember.
I remember she was standing right next to us.
It's almost like I was her. I could see my father dying.
Yeah.
So are we going to now have to take her with us?
But I think she has a part of the puzzle, doesn't she? So she would have to stay with us.
Yes, of course, you can take off the talk at any time.
Yeah, so when you actually arrived at Lindo, she, as Gully suggested, went up to the more wealthier area of Lindo. There was actually somebody waiting for her, and you sort of like came to the town square, which is quite obvious from the map, and she was sort of like taken up the hill, so to speak, to the more wealthier part of the town, and you're not too sure even to this time why she's there or anything like that. You only had what Lord Drayston told you in the his lodgings, his mansion before you actually headed back down here.
The story of Hasra, Bartleby.
Yes.
How long ago did that happen? When did he die? Because you would have thought that the actual death mask which you're wearing now would have been put there when they buried him, probably.
You can make a history roll if you wish.
I do wish, and
I'm just
wasn't that his treasure that was buried there, not himself?
Correct. Yeah, it was his.
So that would have been his wife.
Hence Hasrat's treasure. Yeah.
And boom.
Oh,
dang.
Yeah. If you remember, it's on the opposite side of the continent, so it's actually in an area of Odess called the Realm, and it's in their far-flung history. So you figure about from that timeline, say 50 years ago, maybe somewhere between 50 and 100 years ago, from where you are now. So enough that the local, if you remember, there was a barbarian tribe out there, and then they increased the actual number of guards in Advent that actually then drove them away and actually, virtually wiped them out. There are some barbarians still around there, which could be remnants of Hasra's tribe. I think you actually encountered some of them as you came out of the swamp. Was that right?
It was, or was it when we went into the swamp?
Yeah.
We were being followed by those people.
But apart from
yeah.
that, it'd be somewhere between 50 and 100 years ago where Hasrat's wife would have died.
Have we any suggestions or ideas about this robed figure that has been wandering through the villages and coercing these Batrachians, these frog people?
We haven't got very much to go on as well with that, but I do plan to have a look in the Order's library to see whether or not I can find anything concerning the history of the sorcerers that might have been in that area, and maybe even see whether or not there was a more powerful sorcerer who lived in the actual swamp area.
What about sorcerers who have been expelled or have never joined an order? Would there be a record
those
of
would
that?
be renegades, and I don't. To be honest with you, I think bad things normally happen to renegades. That's one of the reasons that I joined an order, Hengist, because I don't think they've looked upon very favourably are people who practice sorcery outside of the orders.
That is very much correct.
Perhaps it's one of those that has been stirring up the trouble with the Batrachians.
He did seem to be very, very well. I don't know. It was almost as if the place where they were was. I don't know. It didn't seem right.
No.
Did it not seem a bit strange to anybody else?
It
was a very well manufactured.
It seemed like a very ancient.
Nobody had seen, but
Yeah.
the actual contraptions within inside were very well made. There was a lot of metal,
and the stone does not seem to be of that area or anywhere else that we've seen in Odus. Seemed very foreign.
It was almost as if the place had kind of gone back in time rather than evolved.
You do think the actual tower is probably there from a time gone by.
Bygone age.
Yeah, and it was definitely. And if you remember also, it had obviously been there for a while because it has started to sink into the Frog Fen. If you remember, it was tilted over at an angle, so whether or not the environment has actually changed around it over a period of time, you definitely, as Gulliver said, it's exactly what it didn't look like anything in there belonged to your almost like your campaign, for want of a better word. There was a whole load of stuff in there that you had never seen before, including like, if you remember, Bartleby, you were in a room that had a table with metal contraptions on it, which you've never seen before, and a lot of the items didn't look like they were made for human hands, and the whole area didn't look it didn't look, I think Gulliver might have said the word, but it didn't look natural. It didn't look like it belonged there at all. There was, of course, also the big black eel creature that kept erupting from the black water. And remember that black water, once Gulliver had, with the help of Briar, had returned its young to it, that black water was no longer black. It was as if the creature left this dimension or this plane of existence, and ended up in somewhere completely different. And then, if you remember, Gulliver, you saw the water going back to its normal, almost like marsh-like state. I think, is there anything else that you would like to discuss or talk about before I just move things on?
Nothing that Gulliver wants to.
No, I'm good.
Yeah.
Okay then. So Gulliver, you sort of like set it all off a while back because you said that you would like to go off to the library. So tell me what would you like to do, and you can tell me a series of activities if you want to do. Then we'll come back down the line, and then we can then role play them out as we go along. So yeah, Gulliver, what would you like to do?
In the library, he also wants to primary thing that he wants to do, he wants to spend some time in the Orders library.
Okay, yeah.
And he's looking for several bits of information to see whether or not he can find any information with regards to the Chaos Mother.
Okay, yeah.
And the stories behind that, and also the anything. If there's a book on artifacts or anything like that, maybe something to do with the marbled egg, which he has,
yeah.
which gives the marbled egg, the actual spell-like properties of it does seem very linked to sorcery spells.
Okay.
And he wants to see whether or not that would be a particular. He doesn't know exactly what it can do, but he wants to see whether or not it's ever been linked to a certain type of sorcery.
Got ya.
And he also wants to have a look to see whether or not he can find anything concerning the history of any sorcerers who might have lived or practiced in that area.
Okay. That's absolutely right. So what I'm just about to do now, just so I keep on the straight and narrow, history of.
Why did you say Gulliver is typing? Oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. So can you see like I've done there? So if the rest of you can just pick up the same idea. So once you've told it to me, if you just sort of like just type it in the chat as I go on to the next person. Gulliver, you're quite welcome to add anything else to that. It's just because I'm not writing it down at the moment.
Okay.
Mainly because my sheet of paper has a whole load of other stuff on that.
Do you want me to go through everything that I want to?
Well, we'll start with that to start off with, because it seems to me that that's sort of like your trip to the Orders library, isn't it?
Yeah. So my bit's done into sort of like 3 stages. There's the Order library somewhere else in Lindo, and then I need to visit the hairy hobgoblin again for my final.
So the first thing I need to tell you about is that when you go to the Order, if you remember, it's not almost like free access as what it was, before the attempt on the White Sorcerer's life, the chief of the council, and it's still like that. Not much has changed, and it's still a case that you're walking around, and it's not open door. You have to sort of like do your special knock at the door to actually be allowed in, and the library that used to be quite a bustly place, where not necessarily noisy or anything like that, but a fair amount of scholars sat down, a lot of burnt out candles, or candles that are slowly being used over a period of time, when a lot of tomes sort of like out on reading desks and things like that. And when you actually get to your library, the Orders library, it's somewhat almost like deserted, and it's even quite cold, as if the fires have not been lit in here for a while. It's almost.
Does there still seem to be the same amount of books? Or?
The same amount of books, and in certain places, the books are just being left open, as if people have just sort of like been told to leave them. It's not completely deserted. There are a few almost like elderly members of your order around, but they seem to be sort of like in corners and seem to be focusing very much on quite extreme or dedicated or specific spells or of orientation within the order's library. So for example, you know that creating portals and teleportation is part of your order, and they're sort of like there's somebody reading a book about teleporting from other planes of existence, and sort of like almost like far-fetched, as if they're trying to not advance their knowledge, but almost like looking at very specific elements of research. They're not just, they're quite elderly in here as well. Would you like to roll? Do you have a library skill roll, or are you using your literacy roll?
I would be using my literacy roll.
Do you have a library roll that you can augment it, or do you have a knowledge of the order roll?
I have a passion for the Order of the Kraken.
Okay, so you can use that to augment your literacy roll. So it'd be 20% of that
So that'd be
passion.
so that 10% is 6. So that'd be 12.
12, yeah. So pop it in your temporary one, because it'll adjust everything.
Thank you very much for your very much time. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you very much for the loan of your
Put it in
time.
other.
Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you very much. You're
You ready?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very, very, very much. Thank you very much for feeding William. Thank you very, 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 very much.
Thank
I
you
do
for
want to use
supporting the channel.
a point of luck too.
Yeah, that's that. Thank you for your 13 months in a row Prime subscription, Medivac. Just as Gulliver rolled his dice.
Sorry, I didn't even put that.
That's why I was a bit distracted, because
Destructive.
I just had "thank you very much" playing in my ears. Yeah, okay then. So several things. I'm just looking at your question. Yeah, so the first thing that you actually find out about your Chaos Mother is that everything that you read in the book from Aylesford is actually recorded here as well. It's not in the sort of like the Odes chapters. It is from other worlds, and it looks like it's actually was originally composed or written by a blue sorcerer called Matilda. And if you remember, that makes sense to you because you teleported to her tower. So she was obviously around in this town. But
does it give sort of like an idea of how long ago all this happened?
Yeah, it's a typical sorcerer sort of like tale that sort of like says ages before the dawn of time, etc., 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 and it's a bit vague. But if you roll double your intelligence, then roll it as a D. What's double your intelligence?
20.
Oh, you can roll. Tell you what, roll insight. That'd be easier because that's an element of power as well. Yeah, and just to let you know, are you looking that? Yeah, it's an easy roll. You got minutes. Well, actually, you've got hours, so you can actually make
I'll
them.
leave it how it is.
Yeah. Okay then. So you figure it was a lot further back in time than Hasra and the barbarians. A lot further back.
But what about in relation to the sorcerers who had the seeds?
Yeah, so the Chaos Mother, if I give you a rough timeline, you probably think Chaos Mother was way back, way back, many centuries ago. Then in the realm, there was probably Hazard's treasure, and the seeds were probably somewhere between Hazard's treasure and the Chaos. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
But remember the seed was in this side of the continent rather than that side of the continent. There are some other things that you do find out. Your suspicions about the marble egg are actually correct. it's really interesting because in the literature it's actually there, and it talks about a race that use artifacts of great power. And every time it does say artifacts, not just an artifact, but it's really interesting because whenever it mentions them, and the only reason you know it's referring to it because you actually see a picture of a sorcerer holding up the egg, a little bit like the Batrachian did, or you did at one point. And it's really interesting because they actually refer to them with personal pronouns. So they don't say it when they refer to it in the literature. They actually say he.
When they refer to the artifact?
Yeah, and all of them. There seems to be more because at one you're not too sure how many, but they refer to them as they came into the world, and he did this, and she did that, and this, that, and the other. Can you see? So they're not sort of like, they never call it the marble egg. They call it he all the time, as if it or somehow had some kind of being, almost like a personality.
Was there any information on this race?
Now that I was just about to. There's two other things that you find out, and just from this first roll, which it all come from, you do get something about this race, and it's called the Greater Race. And that's all it's referred to. And this is quite ancient text now. And it takes you quite a while to sort of like almost like decipher, not the actual the language, that's not a problem. It's almost like the script, as if it's been there for quite a while and started to fade. And they talk about it, about the elder race, the greater race, and you're not too sure. It could be either one of those from the repetition. It never actually mentions anything else about them, but there are various pictures, and all the pictures are actually robed, and they almost like look stooped. They look very tall in comparison to whatever else is around them, but you don't know whether or not that is just artistic license going on. But you're not too sure. But in some of the pictures, you almost like think that there might be a tail involved underneath the robes. And there's, hang on. There's one last other thing before, and then I'll leave it with you and go on to somebody else. There's one other thing, because you mentioned history of sorcerers, and while you're sort of like browsing through the text, you come across 3 names, and it's 3 names that you probably have written down in front of you. Hemaz, Tepius, Mikey, and Volin, yeah? And it appears that each one of these people were once high up in each of the orders. I say once were, but there's quite an interesting account how each one of them were in various times not so long ago, i.e. within the last 10 years. That they were almost like caught doing things that in the text it states contrary to the workings of the order. And each one of them belonged to blue, white, red and black in that order. So Hemaz is blue, Tepius is white, Mikey is red, and Volin is black. And they each have been removed from the orders and labelled as renegades. And I'll leave that with you for the time being and move along to Hasra. Yeah, Hasra, what would you like to get up to?
I have to buy my bits and pieces. I want to go to my Brotherhood and give them a full report of what happened in the swamp while we were there. Also, the tower, my line of inquiry would be, is there anything in the histories of the Brotherhood that would have a record of the tower and its previous occupants?
Okay.
Plus, also giving them a description of the creatures in the swamp and the Batrachians, the way they were acting and spreading.
Okay, so your
Put that in
order,
there.
your order of the Brotherhood is actually is in this the edge of this forest here.
Yep.
If you can see it now. So
That's
this was the forest, if you remember, the rest of you, that you actually went off and fought. You found Ben in there ages ago and his mother, and then you went to the treetop bandits like Robin Hood, if you remember, that got attacked by flying monkeys, if you remember that.
Yeah, it was the bandit leader was called Jasmine.
Yeah, it was a woman called Jasmine. That's correct. So it's not deep inside the forest, Hasra, but it's just sort of like
It's a few days' travel, isn't it?
no. His Brotherhood isn't. It's just on the edge. It's the camps that's further in. So you head over to your Brotherhood, and you sort of like make a sort of like knock on the cabin door. And if you remember, I think I have a picture of your Brotherhood, don't I?
Yes.
Yeah. I think it's rather. I just need to try to find it because I quite like the picture. Oh yes, here they are. These are the ones that. Hang on, I can't. Let me just copy that because you can't see it on that map. But if we take you back to this map, then I can pop it on the top, and we can see with this zoom out a bit. Yeah, so these are what your Brotherhood look like, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah, so that's right. And it's really it's quite off-putting because obviously you haven't been part of this order, the Brotherhood, for a large amount of time, and you sort of like go through the forest, nearing the sort of like the it's probably more of a cabin, a series of cabins that actually go off into the undergrowth. And even, it's only via your survival skill and your tracking and being told how to get here that you actually make your way through. And the weird thing is that you sort of like approach the door of it, and as you approach, the door's opened for you, and you sort of like see a rather young boy, it seems, probably in his early teens, but you remember that these are obviously the new recruits to the Brotherhood that actually serve the law masters within the order. And he sort of like opens it, but he doesn't speak to you or anything because this is the way of your order. But he does close the door behind you and takes you almost like beckons you to follow him, and takes you to down a series of corridors that you figure is taking the cabin further and further into the undergrowth that you couldn't actually see because of the way the trees are sort of like have grown over it. And to anybody else from the outside, it probably looked like a very thick briar patch or something like that. And eventually you get taken to a room, and you are he sort of like gestures to. There's only two things in this room, or three things, like a wooden table and two wooden chairs, obviously at opposite ends. And you notice that there's a door leading out of the room at the back, and the lad sort of like gestures to a chair, and you sort of like sit down on this rather hard. There's nothing of the soft comforts here. And no sooner have you sat down, as if by magic, the other door opens, and a rather old lawmaster comes in and comes up and sits on the table. And the boy sort of like goes over to the side and brings out a series of quills and ink and parchments, and sort of like lays it out in front of the law master. And the law master, who's quite old, you're not quite sure how old he is, but he looks very old. And you notice that when he picks up the quill, his fingernails are sort of like brown, and the tips of his fingers are actually stained with ink, as if he's constantly been writing but never washing. And he sort of like takes out a fresh piece of parchment and sort of like holds it out, and he dips his pen in some ink, and then he brings his hand over and rests it onto the parchment, and he says, "Hasra, you may begin your recount."
My group and I were following up from Lord Drace, and he called us to his manor house, and we went to go see him, and he gave us a terrible tale of his daughter had been kidnapped by some Betrakians from the swamp.
And as he starts to write this down, and then he stops, and he holds up his hands and says, "You are new to the order. I will.
am, sir.
The dealings with men and their siblings or offspring is no concern to us. Tell me about the nature itself."
The Betrakians seem to have grown in force in the swamp to the south an outside force by the sounds of it.
Yeah,
but in this
numbers,
swamp,
Hasra, numbers.
there were possibly about 100, or thereabouts. There were many tents.
It's quite interesting because when you say possibly, you notice the young lad sort of like stiffens, and the old man sort of like lets out a sigh and says, "There are many different possibles in this world, Hasra. Please, I will dismiss this transgression at this point, since you are new, but in future, please make your numbers a little bit more, shall we say, precise."
I apologize, Lawmaster. It was a very stressful and frantic time as we were surrounded by all
Estimate.
areas.
Hasra, my dear.
I will estimate it 100.
100. Hasra, there is no need to call me Lawmaster. Master is adequate.
Yes,
And he
I
goes-
apologize.
And he writes down 200.
These Betrakians had a camp outside a very old and mysterious large tower, and within this tower there seemed to be
Tell me,
buildings.
a tower of what sort of construction?
It was a stone construction of which I've never seen before.
Created by man?
I could not tell you when it,
You notice the young lad goes,
Yes, I believe not. Inside the tower there were buildings, and there were devices inside the buildings that had there were devices inside the buildings that had handles and device things that could not be operated by a man's hand. So I will say no, it was no man that built this place. It was something else.
In our order, Hasra, we do not split between genders. We tend to call them human. And then the rest of the species, God knows that even women have been in the habit of creating things that are alien to nature itself. I will put strange tower. Tell me more about the Betrakians.
Yes, they seemed to be controlling some large entity, which was a black ooze with tentacles, which
Tell me,
seemed...
Are they still farming the swamp?
No, it doesn't seem that way. We seem to have,
This is worrying indeed. The Batrachians are valuable herbalists of the area. They have keen knowledge and understanding of the Frog Fen. There must have been something quite evil to take them away from this very balanced purpose that they have.
this is why I deemed it necessary to tell you this, because they seem to be abducting humans from settlements outside the swamp and sacrificing them to this black ooze, which we stopped. There were some Batrachians with some pouches of herbs, but there was not many.
I myself was taught my herbal lore by a Batrachian. So they are still farming the swamp?
No, they didn't seem the primary. From what I could tell, the primary.
Hasra, my dear. Hasra.
Yes.
Be more definite. You are stumbling over your words.
I am sorry.
This whole document is going to be full of ums and ahs. Try to be more precise.
I'm new to the Brotherhood, as you have said, and I'm not sure how to report the important things that you require.
You will
and
learn.
What I think
You
is
will
important.
learn. I am teaching you.
You are, and I thank you for
Tell
that.
me, are they?
There were Batrachians.
sorry.
Sorry.
Tell me, are they still indulging in their psychedelic, shall we say, fumes?
Yes, indeed they are.
Right. And he seems to be writing something that you have no idea what he's writing, because I don't think Hasra can actually
No, I can't.
read
no.
or write. And the lad sort of like sees what he writes and goes, that, and the Lord Master just goes, and he says, "Sorry, Master." Like this as he carries on. And how many were left alive?
I would 80.
Oh, you fought bravely against these rather obsessed and maybe possessed Batrachian tribe. Killing 20. I will mark that down, Master Hasra. That's a good kill indeed. And
I
tell
only
me,
killed in defense of myself, to be honest.
and tell me, what of the other tribes in the Frog Fen?
We did not see any other tribes. There were just the Batrachians and the odd leech and spider.
This is strange indeed. Spiders and leeches and buzzing insects are quite familiar in the Frog Fen. But normally I am shocked by the amount of Batrachians in one camp, as you mentioned. Normally they are quite small in family groups. It is strange that they are clumping together in such a large force.
Yes, I thought this was strange too, which I thought it was worthy of your attention, as I know you've been here a very long time, and this area you will have a full understanding. And like you say, you were taught by Batrachian, and they're normally friendly, I take it?
Yes, they have been known to be great supporters of the Brotherhood. I am somewhat disturbed that they have been taken away from their, shall we say, normal sense of well-being.
When we were going through the forest, they did not ask questions. They attacked without warning.
Attacked without warning?
And they seem to be controlled by a large, well, the chieftains seem to be using some kind of magic to control them or to control the beast. And
magic? The Batrachians? Magic?
Yes.
This is strange indeed. They are not possessed. There is no record of them possessing any magical attributes at all. This is very strange. I need to consult some of the older texts. He starts to sort of like tidy things up. The boy says, the boy sort of like looks for a while, and then he sort of like brings out what appears to be like a small pouch. It looks like it's got something quite heavy in it. It's like this, and the boy sort of like goes, "Oh yes, yes," and he sort of like takes it across, and they exchange the goods, and he has this pouch, and the lawmaster turns to you and says, "Yes, well, Hasra, you have provided us with some very valuable information. Your initiation into the order is completed. It is good that you came back and taught us and shared your knowledge with us, for this is what the whole Brotherhood shares and cherishes. But it is now your turn to make a decision, or should we say a choice." And he takes the bag and he sort of like tips it out and goes like this, and you see that they seem to be small pebbles. They're only about this big and about this round, and they're quite good skimming pebbles, if that makes sense. You know, yes. They're more flat, and on each one of them there is painted some kind of stylistic animal. So if, for example, there was a hawk, you can tell that it's got wings and a line that is its hook beak, but it's not a complete. It's almost like cave paintings, if that makes sense. Yeah. And they're all sort of like spread out there, and there's many of many animals that you are familiar with, and they're all spread out there. And just to let you know, the lawmaster is going to give you a question, and then I'm going to move on to Bartleby so you can have a think. And just so you know, there any animal that you would like to be there within reason is there. They all seem to be natural animals, so there's no hydras or furbolgs or anything like that. You know, they seem to be normal. And it is sort of like spreads it out, and the lawmaster says, "Right, so to which do you feel the calling?" And we'll leave you with that decision, and we'll move along to Mr. Bartleby. Mr. Bartleby, how are you doing, face mask?
Doing good. Not making many friends now with my mask on, but
no.
I had two things I wanted to look into, and I had three methods that I wanted to look into these two things.
Okay.
And I'll type this up as you requested once I'm done. I wanted to research the torque more, the golden necklace, and see if I can find any depictions of it or any clues.
Yeah.
And I also wanted to research Briya, see if I can find anything about Briya and why I might have a connection to her to dreams I don't remember. And the three methods I wanted to go about learning anything I can is, obviously I wanted to go to the Church of Amriel, see if there's anything I missed about the torque, which I doubt I missed anything, but I'm going to try anyways.
Okay.
I wanted to see if there is a Church of Gorwyn, the knowledge god, and if there is, if I can get admittance into there to do some research. And failing that or succeeding at that, I'd like to use meditation and prayer to my goddess to see if she'll enlighten me, since my devotion has gone up.
What is it that you want from Gorwyn? Because Gorwyn is Gorwyn a human god, isn't he?
He's a new god, isn't he?
Yeah, he's a new god. So this is a Parthenon that is completely almost like opposed to your normal sort of like Parthenon. I mean, a lot of your order, Bartleby, doesn't even acknowledge the alternative order. So what information do you wish to get from the thesis of Gorwyn?
I know I've talked to my head priest Jeremiah Crost, and everybody's dumped on Gorwyn and everything, but I think that there has to be merit to all the creatures that Amriel looks over, which includes the Church of Gorwyn, and I wanted to see if I could get in there to use their libraries in a very friendly way, not like aggressive or anything. I wanted to find out if there's anything they know about the torque. Specifically and kind of tangentially Cassini and whatnot. Okay. And if they know anything about Briya or her family.
Okay, so first things, let's roll your literacy roll, and you can augment it with your devotion. And I was reading up about your devotion because that's how your intensity of spells are done, isn't it? I think it's 1/10 of your devotion. So has your intensity of spells gone up now?
I don't know. It's at intensity 7, magnitude 7, and I feel like that's about where it was before. Might have been
Gulliver's intensity went up with him putting points in his evocation.
So miracles have a default magnitude and intensity equal to 1/10 of the worshipper's devotion skill. The thesis need not apply the entirety of the miracle's intensity if they wish. So what's your devotion skill?
63.
63. So that should have an intensity and a magnitude of 6 then.
It says 7, so I think they're rounding up.
It rounds up, yeah. Sorry,
I can't edit it.
Yeah. So it hasn't gone up past the 7. Because once it gets to 71, your intensity will go up to 8.
Gotcha.
But that's your shield spell. It says intensity, doesn't it? That it's done as different shields.
Yeah, I'm turning to that page right now. Let's see. Oh, it must have gone up because I went from a large shield to a huge shield.
Yeah, so that will that doesn't matter about areas, locations, or anything like that. But what it means is that, for example, if I hit you with a small weapon, it'll absorb all the armor if you're successful with the blocking it. Medium, now you will do everything. Can you see? It'll only be if it's bigger than, what is it, a large or huge?
It's huge now.
Yeah, so there's not much that's actually going to get through that now on a successful roll. So if it was small, even with a successful block, it wouldn't block a huge weapon. Can you see it just would go straight through it, even if you successfully block the attack. Okay, so
Gotcha.
So if you would like to roll your literacy, you can augment it with your devotion spell.
And augment is 1/10?
1/20th. So 1/10 and then double it. And then stick it on the temporary because it adjusts everything.
Okay, let me see if I did this right. And go into literacy, temporary, and roll. Big money.
Yeah, so you spend hours and hours perusing the books within your within the Amriel's the Twin Gods library, and you spend numerous. You sort of like start off at that. It seems to be daylight after a hearty breakfast, and before long, you suddenly realise that the sun has set. And it's getting dark, and you've got candlelight, and you do find some really interesting information, not necessarily or indirectly about the talk, and it refers back to what Gulliver was actually mentioning in the tavern. And this information that I'm giving you now is assume that nobody else will know unless you actually say that you're going to share it. Okay. So this is just coming to you, so the rest of you just role play out that you don't know this next bit, unless of course Bartleby tells you. It's interesting that when you're looking back through the family history, you suddenly come to a conclusion via the documentation that Briar is not actually Lord Drayston's daughter. She, in modern terms, would have been adopted rather than anything else. And there is an account of the baby being left at the steps of Amriel's church in Lindo. And it is only due to what can only be said luck, that Lord Dresden's wife came to worship at Amriel's altar because she believed in the old god and heard the baby crying. And the account is quite strange because it actually talks about the baby making no sounds, no, being a good baby. And the only time it seemed to have cried was when Lord Dresden's wife actually came to the Temple of Amriel. And the account tells of Lord Dresden's wife hearing the baby and falling in love with the child, and insisting that that the church was no place for a baby, and that she would look after it, especially since she could not actually bear any children at all. And despite several attempts, anyway, and it sort of like seems that Bri was actually adopted. And the interesting thing is, when she was actually found on the steps of Amriel's temple, she was wrapped up in what they describe as pure white linen cloth. And not as if she's been out on the streets or anything. And it comments that she had a significant crop of blonde, curly locks. And the other interesting thing is that she was naked. The only thing she bore was what appears to be the golden torque that was actually around her neck when she was found. And you sort of like take all this in and frantically make your own notes in preparation to decide what to actually do with it. But you suddenly realise that, night is coming in, and it's probably not a good idea to go and visit the temple of Gorwyn tonight. And so, time is going on. That Hasra's been out gone off to find his Brotherhood in the forest, and Gulliver's gone off to his order, and you sort of like decide to almost like turn in from the night. And it's one of those wonderful nights for you as a thesis of Amriel, because the moon is full and it's sort of like bathing your room in the glow of Amriel's grace, and you quite easily sort of like drift off into a quite peaceful sleep with your cot position, underneath your covers, the light of Amriel is shining down on you, and even as it shines down on you, you almost like feel that the funeral mask is losing some of its tightness, some of its itchiness, and it almost seems to be a calming effect. And you pretty soon you drift off and fall into a slumber that is quite peaceful and relaxing, which is to be understandable, bathed in Amriel's radiance. However, you are woken up by a knock at the door. It doesn't sound to be a heavy knock, but it definitely sounds to be an insistent knock. It's not so like da 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 da. It's just sort of like over and over at the door. What would you like to do?
I'll say to the door, or whomever is behind it, come in.
And there seems to be no reply, but just the continual.
I'll go answer the door.
Yeah,
as quickly as I can, because I assume it's a cold floor at night.
Yeah, and you sort of like got your undergarments on, and you head over to the door, and the room is quite lit by Amriel's grace. You know, the windows on full moons are not actually shuttered, so you can actually engage in and worship and replenishing your devotion pool. And you go over rather almost like distressed, well, not upset, because you know it's woken you up. And as you get closer and closer to the door, it suddenly stops knocking. And you reach down and you lift the latch and you open the door, and stood before you is a robed figure with the cowl high over its head. And as you approach and you open the door, it retracts its what appeared to be a hand quickly away from the door. And we will leave that with you to see what you choose to do next when we come back to you, which takes us on to Master Hengist. Master Hengist, what would you like to do?
So Hengist is probably going to try and seek out Briar in the noble area, because he feels like he's sort of like not lived up to his own expectations of himself in the forest and in the swamps, and he wants to sort of like apologize to her for his actions and his slight against Gulliver.
So how you going about that?
So he will head up. He will just, you know, sort of like he'll head up there as bold as brass, and sort of introduce himself to someone on the street and say, I came with Briar and Lord Dresden's daughter. Do you happen to know where she's staying?
Right. So you're just making asking around whereabouts. Briar.
He might try it at the McDuff's house first, because they do half know him from a very long time ago.
Right. So are you going to Ika McDuff's first then, or are you going to?
Yes, he'll try them first, unless he sees her in the, you know, sort of like in a carriage or something.
No, yeah, and you sort of like you arrive at McDuff's, Ika McDuff's place, and despite all this time that's gone by, the house looks somewhat unkempt than what it used to look like. It's almost as if it's almost like being left. And I assume you go up and knock at the door, yeah. And you know, a rather elderly gentleman arrives at the door. He's obviously some kind of footman or butler, or, you know, some kind of hired help. And he's just sort of like opens the door, but he doesn't open it in normal fashion. He's just sort of like opens so it's about this wide, and he sort of like looks you up and down and sort of like says, "Yes."
Hello, my name's Hengist. I helped out the late Lord Macduff on a particular job that he had, and we were with his daughter Ika Macduff. And I was just wondering if they were in, because I have some questions to ask them about some bonds that she may know.
Yeah, and he sort of like turns to you and he says, "I will leave word with Mistress Macduff, and where will she be able to get in touch with you, if at all she wishes to speak to you?"
Should she wish to speak to me, I can often be found in the Hairy Hobgoblin Tavern.
He says, "I will give her word. Thank you," and just sort of like goes and shuts the door. Anything else that Hengist would like to do?
He will sort of say he will. Just trying to think. He will.
Gulliver is typing.
Gulliver is typing.
How are you doing that, Gulliver? Because I can see your hands.
I'm typing. I started to type because I thought it was you were coming back to me.
I
so I was
am.
typing what I was wanted to do, but then I thought I'll wait just in case you're not coming back to
No,
me. So
I am coming back to you. So, is there anything else that
Yes.
Hengist? Yeah.
So failing that, he will walk back through sort of like the main sort of like highways, keeping an eye out for her, and sort of like muttering to himself, sort of like, you silly person, you should perhaps have gone to the one place that might know where she is, and he will try and remember where Sylvester's shop is.
Sylvester's shop is down here, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
So you sort of like wander through the noble area. Just give me a perception roll. Okay, cool. And then I'll come back to you in a second, and we'll go back to Mr. Gulliver.
So one of the other things that Gulliver had wanted to do, which he had been thinking about, especially on the pictures that he saw in Lord Drayston's parlour or his study, he wants to see. He can remember when we first came to Lindo that that Hengist actually found he did some research into various houses to see whether or not he could find anyone related to the twin-headed serpent.
Yes.
That he originally came across to Odis to research, and there was a place in Lindo that actually dealt in the heraldry and the family trees. So he wants to one evening when we're in the Hairy Hobgoblin having food or whatever, he wants to ask Hengist about it and get directions to where it is. And what he wants to do, he wants to look into to see whether or not he can find any information on the Drayston family. He's more looking back. His ideas were that maybe the talk that Briar had was actually some type of family heirloom which had been passed down from her mother, and maybe her mother's mother had passed it down to her. So he was looking for something to do with their family tree.
Yeah, so that information is kept in these almost like the city records of the town of Lindo, which will be up at not the noble section, up by Count Bastion's thing. So that's where you would need to go and sort of like to inquire about looking at the family records, etc. Is that the plan?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay then. So you we'll say that Hengist sort of like told you that before he went off for the walk around the noble area. So you've got that information, and you sort of like go to the account records. I don't think, am I right in thinking that there's nobody you actually know in here, isn't there?
There's nobody I know.
Yeah, so you sort of like met at the door. It's an open door policy, you can go in, but there's various clerks sat at various tables, and you can see that some people are sort of like getting certificates marked off for marriage, or they've got a screaming child with them. And you also notice that from when you originally arrived at Lindo, you remember there were some of Count Bastion's guards writing what you were going to be doing.
Yes.
Yeah. And you can see some of those bits of paper coming in, and you see almost like a box, a wooden box, and they just seem to be piling up in there, and you suddenly think, I wonder if mine's actually there right at the bottom. There doesn't seem to be a lot of interaction with those at all, but there's various scribes sort of like marking up, and there seems to be like a bit of a waiting room area. There's not a huge amount of people here. There's only sort of like two youngsters with a rather cross-looking father stood over, almost like shotgun wedding style, arranging some kind of wedlock. And a very sort of like young family that seem to have about 3 or 4 children already, registering the birth of somebody else. And pretty soon you sort of like call to one of the clerks in the area, and it seems to be it's still male dominated. And the guy says to you, "Yes, how can I help you, please?"
Oh, hello. My name's Gulliver. I'm from the Order of the Kraken. I'm an apprentice.
You notice once you mention one of the sorcery orders, he almost like stiffens slightly, and he sort of like backs up slightly as if to say, "Oh," and you notice that some of the other people just sort of like go, and sort of like lean slightly away from you as if you possess great power. And he says, "Yes, sir. How can I help you?"
Yeah, the information that I need is of fairly.
I'm sure we can get you any information that you wish, sir. Shall I go off and get it now for you?
I was well, you don't know what it is yet.
Oh no, sorry, sir. Yes. Well, how can I help you?
I was looking for information concerning the Dresden family.
And as you sort of like casually sort of like gesticulate with your hands at one point, and sort of like go like that, he goes,
People
like
duck.
as if he thinks that you're just going to cast. And he says, "Oh yes, Dresden family," and he sort of like scribbles down onto a piece of paper that you notice even looking at it, it could vaguely resemble Dresden, but he's almost like writing at such a speed. Anything else that you would like, Master?
How long will it take?
Oh, no, not long at
shall I
all.
wait?
Oh, yeah, no, yes, I will be extremely quick. Dresden family. And he sort of like quickly gets up and pushes his chair away and sort of like goes scurrying off. And as he walks away, he sort of like is gazing back, glancing off to you, and he's like, I'm going now, sir. Sort of like scurries off to.
Gulliver will go and sit down when he's gone.
Yeah, so you're sort of like sat at his desk, so it's almost like a banking sort of like, but and everybody is you definitely they're looking at you, Gulliver, but not in the way they used to look at you, as if to say. A pathetic person. It's just sort of like almost like, oh, who is this? And we'll come to you, Hasra. You have these animal tokens out in front of you.
I look at these stones in front of me on this desk, and I close my eyes and I reach forward hesitantly, but then I send my breath. My ancestors guide me, and I pick up a stone and I turn it over, and it is a stone with a jaguar on it.
Oh, I thought it was going to be hippopotamus.
Yeah.
or they trick you.
Yeah, and what it actually looks like, it looks like a cat's head. So you can tell the ears are sort of like up and sort of like slightly tufted, and the eyes are very prominent, and the whiskers. And the old man says, "Oh, so the jaguar has chosen you. That is very interesting indeed." And he sort of like clicks his finger, and the boy who was busy looking at the tokens sort of goes like that, and he's a little bit too slow because the guy goes, and he's still looking at it, and the guy just goes whack over his head, and he sort of and he sort of like goes scurrying off, and he goes through the back door, and comes back with what appears to be almost like a necklace box. Does that make sense for a pretty woman?
Yeah.
And he sort of like comes up and he sort of like opens it, and it's quite deep. It's about this deep, and the lawmaster looks into it and he goes, "Oh yes." And he brings out and he hands to you what appears to be the tooth of a jaguar or some kind of cat. And it's actually been, it has the tooth, but the end of it has what appears to be some kind of metal clasp on it. And then beyond that is a leather like necktie. And he sort of like hands it to you, and it just unties into like two things. And he says, "So put it on."
In which case I will go.
Yeah, and he says, and he looks at it sort of like on top of your tunic, and he says, "No, Hasra, my dear.
I'll put it under. Yeah.
Closer to your skin, where it can feel the pulse of your heart and the running of the flow of blood through your veins, where it can feel your life force within." And you sort of like slip it underneath your padded, I think you have padded armor, is that right?
I do indeed, yes.
Yeah.
I'll be like,
You sort of like fit it down, and it sort of like hits your skin, and it almost like for a second feels warm. And you sort of like sat there, and he says, "Yes?
yes, master.
Why are you still here? Our business is done." And he sort of like steps up and starts to walk, and then he turns around and he goes, "Boy, tablets!" And the boy sort of like that, and he sort of like he gets them all up into the thing. Yeah, and he's
Before he goes, I want to just say, Master, one quick question I have. There have been talks of rumours. I know we have no dealings with the villagers or the mundane of life, but there have been talks of a robed man, a robed figure, I will say, who's taller than a man, who just glides across the ground. Is this? It cannot be human. It must be some other creature. Is there any knowledge you may share with me about this?
And he sort of like stops and he turns around and looks at you and he says, "Hasra, my dear, not all robe wearers are human." And he just sort of like, almost like fixes his glare at you for a moment and then goes,
I'll give him a smile myself, and I will bow deeply.
and he sort of like shuffles back as the boy sort of like collects up everything, and then he gets to the door and he notices that the door's shut, and he goes, "Boy!" like this, and the poor lad sort of like picks up everything else and sort of like tries not to drop anything as he goes over, and sort of like, and he says, "Oh, good grief." And sort of like as the boy sort of like opens the door, he sort of like goes click across the ear, and he sort of like ducks, and then they go out and the door shuts, and you make your way back to Lindo with your jaguar tooth firmly on your chest. And we'll pass back to Bartleby, who has just opened the door to find that there is a robed figure with a hood tightly drawn stood before him in the night, with him in his underclothes. And actually, before we do that, I just noticed the time, so I think this will be a perfect opportunity to take our break, and we'll come straight back to see what Bartleby is going to be doing in his undergarments as the robed figure stands in front of him. He's probably started to wonder where he's left his club of some description. So we are going to take a quick 10-minute break. So please go off, stretch your legs, grab a drink, grab something to eat, and come back after 10 minutes when we'll see what fate beholds Bartleby at the threshold to his room. We will be back in 10. See you soon. So I'll just go on to that. And yes, welcome back, everyone.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. So we are just finishing off the activities before the start of the next adventure, and when the party will go and engage with polite conversation with their patron, Sylvester McCoon, who is a wonderful character and we love him to bits. However, before we get there, so far Hasra has been off to his guild, the order called the Brotherhood, and has given his account of the Batrachians and has gained what appears to be a jaguar's tooth that he's wearing next to his chest. Hengist has been up to see Ika McDuff and to see whether or not there's anything he can do there. Gulliver's been to his order and found out a whole lot of information, and now is at the registry office of the record in Lindo. And Bartleby has been knocked up in the middle of the night. Sorry, has had somebody knocked on his door at the middle of the night, and he has gone to answer it in just his underclothes and has found the robed figure stood at the door. And we'll pick it up, Mr. Bartleby, as you open the door and you see the robed figure in front of you. What would you like to do? Say, the window is open, by the way.
Litton and Amriel's great.
Who's was that? This adventure or the D&D adventure when people were jumping out the window?
D&D.
D&D.
We were throwing a rescued captive out the window too.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So yes, Mr. Bartleby. So you open the door and there's the robed figure is there. What would you like to do?
I'd like to question my senses. What color is the robe in the dim moonlight?
It you can see that it's dark, but that's about it. I'm going to do a countdown soon.
Strike first.
Do I recognize the robe at all?
It looks like a dark robe.
So not like a robe of a person that they wear at the church?
No. You're, as you can see from your token, you don't tend to wear robes like that, don't you? It's more.
That's right.
Yeah. What would you like to do?
Okay, since I've stared at him long enough, I'll take a step back while leaving the door open, and say, "Can I help you?"
Yeah, and as you sort of like step back, stuttering slightly, the robed man or figure steps forward into the room as well, and reaches behind or to one side and sort of like closes the door behind them. And so you're sort of like stood about a little bit more than about 30 centimeters. You're quite close, and you're stood there, and it looks like it's a dark robe that is trimmed in something, and the hands come out, and you see them in the moonlight, and they're definitely not human hands at all. They seem to be almost like leathery of some description. I heard a sharp intake of breath. Did you want to do something?
No, I'm fine.
Yes, okay. You can stop me anytime that you wish. And so the hands come out, and they're definitely not sort of like human. They seem to be human shape, but they're definitely not human skin. They're more leathery, and it's almost, you can almost like see it glistening off the leather hide of the hands. And you notice that that one hand goes up to grab the cowl like this. Does that make sense? Can you see that? As if
Yeah.
And the other one seems to pass over to one side. When you see that this robe is not actually attached down the middle, down the front, it seems to be more of a clasp over here, and in one fluid action, the creature pulls back the cowl of the hood and releases the clasp, and sort of like the robe parts, and the headdress, the cowl goes off and falls off the creature's head, and you see stood before you, wearing not a great deal, but definitely covered up, is Briar. Her blonde hair sort of like cascades down her off her shoulders, and she sort of like releases this clasp, and the robe falls open, and you can see quite clearly the talk, and you notice that it actually reflects off the moonlight, and almost like is quite dazzling. And she seems to be wearing some kind of white chiffon sort of like robe, very light and very transparent in certain places.
Do you have any pictures?
No, I don't. Perv. And she sort of like looks up to you, and you sort of like and she goes like that, and you notice that she's actually got leather gloves on. That she slowly starts to pull each one of the fingers and takes one of them off, and then pulls the other one off, and just sort of like cascades them, just lets them drop off the floor next to her. What would you like to do?
Am I
Please,
standing?
hang on, let me just, I beg your pardon. What did you say?
I was going to ask if I'm standing in the moonlight.
Yeah, well, the moonlight shining on your back, yeah.
Okay.
I was just making sure that my mature content is on at this point. Yeah, yeah, and she sort of like stands in front of you.
I'll take a step back and whisper, why are you here?
She takes a step forward, and she says, "It's." Sorry, what was that?
Worst time to whack your microphone.
Sorry.
She takes a step forward and says, in a almost like celestial voice, she says, "I saw how you looked at me, Master Bartleby. Is this not what you desired?"
You whore.
Who are you talking to? Sorry, Bartleby.
Bartleby.
Bria, I know we know each other from some place. I was trying to work up the courage to ask where I know you from.
I knew you were trying to search for the courage, but I could not wait for you, Mr. Bartleby. I knew we would have to be together.
Together?
Yes. Is that not what you wish, or want, or even desire?
Well, perhaps in the past, yes, but I am myself. No. I'm devoted to the church, Bria, and to a greater cause. The necklace you have.
I am too devoted to a greater cause. I'm devoted to you, Mr. Bartleby.
What does that even mean?
I'm sure that if you are not aware, I can show you the
the way?
Don't worry. I know what I am doing. And she flicks the cowl off her shoulders, and it just sort of like crumbles to the floor behind her, and she takes another step closer to you, sort of like closing the distance. And as you try to speak, her hand comes up and just presses.
Is my church going to kick me out if I have with this lady?
Her finger comes up and just sort of like presses on your on the lips of the funeral mask, and says, "I know what beauty lies beneath. It does not worry me, Mr. Bartleby. I know that we can be together. We can be as one. I do believe it is destined."
I was good. So, how far can you get that tongue out of that mask?
Anything to talk off a neck, take one for the team.
But I don't want to get caught in this scandal.
Take one for the
Together
team.
forever.
So I've just, you probably can't see chat, but we've had things like "Begone Temptress," "Begone Demon," and then it says Madivac down there doing eyebrow motions.
Oh, his camera was.
My camera's stuck to my eyebrows, going up and down.
Just trapped in a loop.
And then somebody says Bartleby better have his chastity belt on and swallow the key.
He
doesn't need that. He's got Amriel's blessing.
The main question.
I don't know if I have Amriel's blessing.
No, but you have a rape whistle, don't you?
The important thing is the Order of Amriel celibate.
Yeah.
Is it?
If it's not, you're fine.
Yeah. And if it is, don't tell anybody.
Amriel will know. That's my big problem here.
Oh.
Is
No, it's
church-
nighttime.
Okay,
Shit,
then,
look at that.
Come on, just get
perfectly
this out.
Crack on. In detail.
Let's roll a devotion roll, Mr. Bartleby.
Giggity.
You can you can augment it with your passion. With
Oh,
your
lots of passion. Yeah, plus 50 passion.
for Amriel. Passion for Amriel.
which is a 58. Gives
Okay.
me a 2.9, or would that be a 3 for your augment?
Could have been worse. Could have been a 69.
Let's see. Devotion,
Handled again.
devotion getting 3.
Maxillate says knock her out, ditch her somewhere in a gutter. Ooh,
So what's that stand out for Mr. Pickles?
Drat. I was going to have some fun if you failed that roll. She sort of like, you sort of
That
like.
should have been a blind roll.
No, I could have role played it. Don't worry. She sort of like goes to take another step towards you, and you sort of like hold out your hand and sort of like step away and say, "What do you wish to say, Mr. Bartleby? You are devoted to your goddess. So, what's the thought?"
I went into this situation thinking it would be she was going to kill me, or that this monster was going to zap me. I was not prepared for this situation. I'm gonna hold up my hand, and I'll say, I only have love for Amriel. Something of that sort.
She sort of like looks at you, and she sort of like, her head sort of like falls down, and she sort of like says, "I have made a fool of myself. I am never good at reading people. I am sorry, Mr. Bartleby. And she sort of like scrambles around for the cowl and sort of like drapes it over her shoulders and says, "I'm mistaken. Your look, your glances had something completely different. I know now. It was just that. You wanted me for my money, my inheritance, and not for a stirring that I thought was deep within each of us, that was bringing us close together. I am so sorry, Mr. Bartleby. I have embarrassed myself."
Brea, wait.
Do not talk. Do not make me linger in this place anymore. I just... And she just sort of like reaches for the door and sort of like opens the door, and not even bothering to pick up her gloves. She just sort of like she doesn't put the cloak on or anything. She just wraps it around herself, and she sort of like turns and goes, she says, "I will speak of this no more, Mr. Bartleby." And she says, and you suddenly think, ouch, that was loud, you know, and she sort of like patters away down the corridor, and you suddenly notice that she's not even wearing any shoes of any description, and you sort of like stood there.
She took her shoes off in my room?
She arrived with no shoes at all.
Oh, dear.
And you stand there, you know, bathed in radiance as she flees away from you and heads off into the night. Gulliver, what's happening with you is actually still the day before Bartleby's encounter. Yeah, and the sort of like the guy comes back, and he's sort of like, he seems to be hurrying towards you with this huge pile of documents, and he sort of like comes towards you and he says, I have tried to find everything that I possibly could, master, like that, and he goes bang down on the thing, and there's this sort of parchments sort of like roll all over the place. I took the liberty, just in case you wanted to know anything else about any of the noble families around the area, that I would bring everything just in case. Is there anything else that I could help you with?
No, I just wanted the information on the Draystons.
Yes, it is in I think yes, this scroll, and he sort of like hands you a parchment. Is their family lineage? I hope that is satisfactory for you.
Do I read it here, or is this for me to take?
If you need to take it, Master, but I am sure we can trust you very explicitly to bring it back. And he sort of like almost like does a nod of the head.
Thank you very much. I'll bring it back as soon as I've finished with it.
Oh yes, any time. And thank you very much for being so kind to me. And yes. And you sort of like put your hand out almost to sort of like shake his, and he sort of goes.
I'll wiggle it.
And he just sort of like shakes and says, yes,
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And you go off. It's just so you know, when you take your time to look at the almost like the family history, and quite the opposite to what you've heard from role playing earlier on. There is it looks like it is recorded that Briar is Lord Drayston's and his deceased wife's daughter. It doesn't mention anything about adoption or anything like that at all. Was there something else that you wanted to know about it?
No, I wanted to basically I wanted to go back, and I was thinking on the lines that the talk was a family heirloom that has been passed down from her mother, from her grandmother, for example. And I wanted to follow the timeline back to when we assumed where Hazard's treasure.
Hazard treasure was a lot further back in time than when the Drainstones actually lived, were born, etc. That's going back way back to their great grandparents or something like that. I mean, they seem to be a noble line that have always lived in the manor and always sort of like cultivated the ground around them. And there's Briar's birth, which is what it's recorded as, is only Briar herself is only something like 21 years old. So it's quite in line with that, if that makes it's quite out of the timeline or something. And Gulliver, just so you know, when you head back, and you're probably all heading now back to the hairy hobgoblin the night after your encounter, Bartleby, and you sort of like spent the day recovering. And Gulliver, you probably sort of like take these, and as they're closing down the records house, you sort of like head back to meet up with the group once again in the heavy hobgoblin, and you're sort of like still clutching the stuff, some of this scrolls. And you notice, Gulliver, that as you go through the streets, people are definitely giving you a wide berth. Can you just roll me a streetwise skill for me? I think you have streetwise. And you sort of like notice that it's definite that, some people are even crossing the road rather than keeping on the side. And you also notice that you sort of like, when you look from one way to another, you do notice that people seem to be almost like averting their eyes from you. And it's coming in dark as you get to the hairy hobgoblin, and you can hear the sounds of the tavern up ahead. And as you sort of
does Gulliver have his Order of the Kraken symbol displayed?
No, I don't.
Right.
I always thought you kept that hidden.
He does, yeah. Well, since the issue with the orders and the assassination attempt, and it was sort of
it's almost as if it may be somebody seen you going into the orders.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to eliminate that you didn't think that I had it.
No, not at all. Yeah,
that's fine,
I knew that. Yeah, and you sort of like hurry past, and even as you get to the hairy hobgoblin, you notice that there's some drunkards outside, and they just sort of like almost like part the way, as if you're some kind of heroic beast of power. And as you get closer, you suddenly hear and a sound, and it seems to be somebody calling your name, and you're just sort of like hurrying past, and you just hear Gulliver, like that, and you sort of like stop.
I'll stop, and I'll sort of like, did it come from outside?
You're not too sure where it actually came from. It sounded more like a whisper rather than a shout. And
does a heavy hobgoblin have sort of like an attached stable or anything?
No, it's most horses are stabled near the city gates because they have a dreadful habit of mucking up the streets. The only ones that are allowed in are carriages, and that's only to get to the marketplace to sell wares and things like that, mainly for transport.
He'll sort of like he'll look around, and if he doesn't hear it again, he'll go, "Hello."
And somebody goes, "Hello." And it seems to be a guy who's just sort of like stood. He looks slightly worse for wear, and he's just sort of like, because you're sort of like stood just at the entrance, and he's sort of like out there, and he sways a bit, and you sort of like go, "Hello," and he goes, "Hello."
Gulliver say, "Did you hear that just then? Did you hear somebody say my name?"
No.
Gulliver, it was. Kind of like
No. My name's Bert.
maybe it was the wind. Oh, thanks
Maybe.
anyway, Bert.
Basil's pies sometimes have that effect on me too. And he just sort of like sways slightly. You notice he's got some kind of meat juice down his front, and you sort of like make your way carrying your things to your favourite table. Yes, so you are all back at the actual table. What would you like to do?
Gulliver's going to wait until Basil comes round to take orders. I suppose he comes round still, does he?
Well, his maid, he has servers as well, but he can come round if you ask particularly for him. He can sort of like come round.
Yeah, well, when Gulliver puts in his order for his water and his plate of bread and cheese, he'll say to the server, if Basil's free, would it be possible to have a quick word with him?
Yeah,
If you say that Gulliver has asked.
He sort of like says to she sort of says, "Oh, of course, Master Gulliver. I'll ask him over. He's a bit busy with the pies at the moment, but I'm sure he'll have some time later on." That was my best tavern wretch voice.
Thank you.
Yeah, and she sort of like comes over and she brings the water and the cheese, and you all sort of like sat there. Role play away.
I think I might have found out some information that might be important to us. Can you remember when we were in the den of the vipers?
Yes, Gulliver.
It's hard to forget.
And there was 4 sorcerers, and they went away through a portal.
Yeah.
That's right. Is that they sacrificed the sorcerer to the snake thing?
Was that
When we were
afterwards?
escaping.
Yes, it was.
It was after, most definitely.
Well, I think the names that were left for us. Do you know the ones that we're referring to?
The ones that we yelled at the stones?
Yes.
The ones that we yelled, yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Do they mean anything?
Well, I was doing some research in the library of my orders library, and it would seem that there's 4 renegade sorcerers whose names matched the ones that were left on the note.
but for the stones, so they did not open the gateway. They were just names.
What?
Well, we said the names, didn't we, to open the gateway to go down into the cavern. It didn't work.
That is
several
correct.
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, they were just they were. I think we were trying to. They were trying to warn us.
It was
These were the sorcerers that we needed to be aware of.
That is good, Gulliver. We are one step closer, and I am another step closer to finding my sister. We now have names to ask for.
But it was the lady who gave us the names, wasn't it?
Danielle.
Yes, Finiel.
Just a
Sorry,
note. I called Finian.
Yeah, she gave us the names, so that's good. So she's on our side, which is nice. But how did she know the names to give us?
Well, the Orders Library didn't say that.
What did you find about the names, Gulliver?
They're 4 renegade sorcerers. And that was it, really. But I know that Hemaz is the Order of the Kraken, and I know that Volin is the Order of the Lich. So that means that Tepius is either the Phoenix or the Dragon. I didn't find out why they were renegaded, though, but they're all renegades.
It would have to be something quite serious, I would have thought, or they would not be made renegades.
And what do you do with renegades? What is the course of action with renegades?
Well, a renegade's somebody who either doesn't want to join the Order or gets kicked out of the Order.
Gulliver, Hengist, and Hasra, can you make an insight roll for me, please?
Certainly.
Insight.
Not Bartleby.
Not Bartleby.
Is Bartleby really hard to read now that he has a mask on?
Yeah, and hence why the insight rolls. But you do actually figure when Bartleby's been unusually quiet. He seems somewhat not himself. Even even with the mask on, and that's why I asked you to make insight rolls, Gulliver, rather than saying you notice something, because his mask actually prevents you seeing certain facial recognitions and things like that.
Yeah, it's done on body language.
Body language, yeah.
But he sort of like, you notice that his head is slightly tipped to one side or leaning forward or something like that.
So, Mr. Bartleby, what have you been doing while we've been doing other things? What have you discovered, or what have you done?
I looked into the Torque legends.
I looked into the jaws of death.
And trying to find what I can about Bria and lamenting my failures a little bit.
I actually went to the and found out about the family tree. I was thinking that maybe the talk had been passed down from her mother, and from her mother's mother, and it was some type of family heirloom.
I'm not so sure about that. From my church libraries, it was noted that Bria was left at the church, an orphan of sorts. And she had the necklace on when she arrived.
To be. Look, I've got the official document here. Look, I'll show you. And he'll open it up and he'll say, "Look, here. It's got the day that she was born and everything.
Well,
Look, this is her mom. This is her mother, and her mother's mother."
Peculiar indeed. It means one of our sources is wrong. My source is the church. But why would there be any reason to doctor either story up?
I don't know.
Perhaps if the adoption is true, the Dresdens were too embarrassed or too worried about their reputation and tried to hide the fact. Or perhaps the church have got their records mixed up. I don't know if that was something that the church would do.
Why would they do that?
Or
What
perhaps
purpose would it serve?
Or perhaps the Dresdens knew the importance of the talk and wanted to keep the baby secret so nobody else was find out that she was here.
Did either of the records that both of you looked at mention the talk in any way?
Yes.
That might give a hint.
I just think Bartleby should talk like this from now on.
Might be like Kenny from South Park there. Nobody can understand what I'm saying.
Or just me when my internet's bad and I go really tinny.
Oh no! They killed Bartleby!
Well, the records that I have, Hengist, it's just like a family tree. It just notes births, deaths, and marriages, basically, not what items of jewelry people wear.
The Church of Amriel is very flowery language in their record keeping. And the record that they had was that Bria was found on the steps of the church as a baby, wrapped in a pure white linen cloth and bearing the torque around her neck. Miss Lord Dreyston, Lordess Dreyston? Whatever her title.
Lady Dreyston.
Lady Dreyston.
Yeah.
Sorry, Bartleby's had a little bit of beer at the Harry Goblet.
For a straw.
Oh, that makes it even fizzier.
When he takes it off, it might sort of like froth up.
But the Lady Dreyston fell in love and took her home. That is the record shown by my church.
But that would mean that the torque was really small when it was put around her neck.
Or it was
really big.
Yeah. It was actually a belt when she first got it.
Yes, when she first wear it, so I could slip through her.
Or unless it's if it is the talk of in the collection that we're after, perhaps it fits the wearer.
Like the mask that Bartleby now wears, which molded itself to his face in such a unique way.
Did it really?
And the bracelet that, or the amulet that you're wearing, Bartleby, as well.
Yeah, I did mold to my arm. I didn't know that it. I thought I was just looking like a dead barbarian woman this whole time.
So can...
Now you look like a man with a very small mouth.
I wondered what you were going to say. I was really worried.
So to find the Oasis of Sanctuary, do all three things need to be worn by the same person, or can different people wear them?
That's a good question.
And Basil's just arrived at your table in mid-conversation, and he sort of like comes over and he says, excuse me, good sirs, there is a bluebird here wishing to pass an urgent message on to you all. Is it all right if she approaches the table?
Of course.
Yeah, and...
Yes, Basil, but I do need to ask you a question at some point during the evening, Basil, so would it be all right if I seek you out later before we retire?
Yes, long chap. No worries. It goes bash on your back. Several damage modifiers too big. And you sort of like that, and he's sort of like, "Come on, lady, come on, bluebird, over here." And he goes, and a young, sort of like quite timid bluebird. Remember, they're the people who carry messages around, and they either can be written, or because there's not a lot of writing done in the world, they could be done verbally as well. And she sort of like comes. I'll just pretend that this is her. She's not actually smoking a pipe, or. That I always think
anime.
Yeah, and she sort of like comes over and sort of like looks around the table, and her...
Gonna go say, wait, what's the message for anybody in particular? If you have a name, I can probably point them out.
Yeah, and she sort of like looks round and sort of like sees you with your mask on, and she's there's sort of like this almost like recognition comes to her eyes as she she sees you, Bartleby, and she says, I have a message here, either written or to present verbally.
Who's your message for?
And she looks at you, Gulliver, and then looks at Bartleby, and she sort of like leans over and says, "Is he all right? He looks a bit scary."
Gulliver will say, "He's just a bit deformed."
"Oh, I had an aunt like that," she says. "Accidentally poured some stew over her face. Hideous burns."
I think it was to do with hot wax.
"Oh, does he need any silver coins?"
Oh no. He's
Are you sure? Maybe he might.
he's a priest of Amriel.
Oh, right. She's a good goddess, I think.
Maybe you should give it to us in a written form.
Oh, yes. She says, it's for somebody called Hengist.
Oh. Maybe you should give it verbally.
Yes, she says. She sort of like looks at you, and she seems to be communicating with you, Gully, because you're more her age, and said, she says,
this is Hengist, the one in the armor with the crest.
"Oh, right." And she sort of like she says, "Here, or shall I move round?"
Move round, and maybe in a quiet voice, just in case he doesn't want anybody else to hear.
All right. And she opens it, and she sort of like adjusts her uniform and gets ready to obviously do some kind of speech. And she says, and she looks a bit worried and says, "My beloved Hengist, thank you for calling on me today. It was so kind of you to visit. Sadly, I was unable to actually meet you, but I fully understand your intentions, and I am happy to receive you on any other day that you are available. I hear you have great wealth, and I'm sure a marriage between our two houses will allow them both to develop to a lot of..." And she's all like,
Have a look at the
you think it says prosperity.
prosperity.
Prosperity. I await your calling, your beloved Ika. And she sort of like folds it up and hands you the note.
Hengist will extend his hand and say, "Thank you very much. May I send a message back?"
Yes.
Tell her I will call on her very soon.
Oh,
She sort of like looks at you, Gulliver. I am sorry, good sir.
Oh, he'll pay you.
Oh yes, there needs to be payment for the
And
returning
how
message.
much is the return message going to cost?
I am sure it is up to you, kind sir. My aged mother will be grateful for anything that we can give her, and
Oh,
her,
yes, this is-
and her one leg.
Hengist will
It has been so sad
dig into his purse.
since our dog died and left us all alone in the world.
and pull out 5 silver pieces and pass it over and say, "Please make sure you pass on my message."
Yes. She sort of like takes it out of your hand. Oh, good job the cat didn't die as well. And sort of like goes scooting off out of the doorway. Okay, is there anything else you would like to...
As soon as she's gone, Gulliver's going to turn to Hengist and say, "So, Hengist, what information have you managed to find out?"
I was more worried it was going to be like a happy birthday to you.
Well, it is my birthday soon.
Bartleby was just panicking that it was...
Yep, no bad news that could come
So
for me.
Again, Bartleby, what have you been doing?
Bartleby, you seem like you've seen a ghost.
What avenues of
fine,
information have you
guys,
been poking
fine.
into?
Both of them are trying to pull it off onto the other person.
It's just Gulliver and Hasra just going, like tennis.
It's like tennis, yeah.
Well, we are sitting opposite each other.
No, who can have the stoniest face? Well, Bartleby.
Well,
Just to let you know that anybody trying to insert Bartleby now has an automatic how to formidable task to actually do it.
Stoic Bartleby.
Yeah. Yeah, so is there anything else you would like to discuss until the new day dawns and you head off to Sylvester's?
Gulliver, after we've eaten a bit more, he wants to say, I did also find out some more information which might be relevant to the whatever was living in the swamp. Have you ever heard of something called the Greater Race, Bartleby?
The Greater Race.
Yes.
Dive into my mind bank. Could I roll monsters, perhaps? Or would history be appropriate?
History is probably more appropriate.
I think that's actually my higher skill, so yeah. Oh, it is. It's
I
weird.
can't tell you much about them. They were probably taller than humans, but they had tails.
Could I use a point of luck to re-roll that? See if I
Yes,
get
by all
something
means.
better. Yeah, re-rolled. It's technically better.
Yeah, you do know that there are several what are classed as elder races. Most of them are very nondescript. They're either hideous, almost like Call of Cthulhu creatures of the Cthulhu mythos, and several of them who there's no real proof that they actually existed, apart from just sort of like random talking and weird paragraphs in strange books. And that's
What kind of tale did you find about the greater race, Gulliver?
It wasn't much of a tale. It was just various bits of information that pointed to them in conjunction with the you know that egg that I had.
Yes.
well,
Well, it seems that there could be more one of them, and it could even be a. Well, it was weird because on all the texts that I read, it referred to them like they were almost like living. They called them he's and hers and she's and hims and them. And you don't call rocks thems. You call them its.
Do
Or
you still
those.
have your rock?
It's in my backpack.
Sorry, it's about to go.
Have you talked to the rock?
I don't talk to rocks.
Well, if it's a him or a her, you may try talking to the rock.
did it talk back to you when you?
I don't think now's the time though.
Well, probably not right now, but maybe like later on at night you could try it.
Right. Okay.
so.
But
Gulliver.
that's what mean.
You don't talk to rocks though, do you?
That's what mean that the other things I saw in the tower, there was an indentation with these 3
Oh, what's
eggs. This hole with these 3 eggs in there with the vines growing out from it. Would they be the same type of rock things, or would they be just eggs?
I don't. I didn't see those. What did they look like?
They look like eggs in like a hole.
What were they made of?
I don't know. We didn't go down. We were too busy looking for Bria.
What would have laid them?
Yeah, the eggs that you saw, Hasra, were more animal eggs.
They were proper eggs, were they? They
Yeah.
were sort of stone
No,
from a distance.
you figured they were almost. I think it was like ostrich-size eggs.
Gotcha. Yep. Okay. In which case, maybe I'm mistaken. They were probably animal eggs. My apologies, Gulliver.
But we didn't see any animals.
No.
So where were the eggs from?
Maybe they ate the thing that laid the eggs.
But there was pens as well, wasn't there?
Yes, there were pens, and remember they were
I was thinking, I didn't mention anything
biros.
about.
Biros.
They were
They were
ballpoint.
pyromaniacs.
There was a paper mate.
Yes, there were also rooms with the creatures inside, which we did not go into. Well, we opened the door and closed it very quickly. So maybe it was just some kind of menagerie.
Menagerie, yeah.
Menage
I thought you were going to say
trois.
menage a twat or
Yes,
something.
yes.
But
No,
frogmen,
Mr. Bartleby, what have you been doing?
frogmen don't lay eggs, do they?
Well, frogs lay eggs.
No, frogs lay spawn.
Spawn, yes. Which are like soft eggs type things.
Yeah.
with dots in the middle.
The only classification of creatures or animals that lay eggs. Avians do, i.e. birds, reptiles, and you know that is just, you don't need a monster law,
No, that's common knowledge.
yeah.
Birds lay eggs, reptiles, yeah.
and that's it.
So
Oh,
maybe there
and-
were snake eggs or bird eggs in that case.
One mammal does as well.
Yes.
Platypus.
Yeah,
Bill Platypus.
yeah.
That funny thing with the
Bill. Okay, is there anything else you would like to do or say before to just to let you know what's going to happen? We'll go off and have the encounter with Sylvester McCoon, and that will start off the next adventure, and then we'll finish it at a point that I'll say, so you're setting off in the next couple of days, so you'll have time to prep for that adventure. If there's anything that you want to buy in addition to what you've already bought, then you can do that in between this session and the next session. Does that sound acceptable? Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
Okay then. So is there anything else that people would like to talk about, or can I move you forward to the next day?
Yeah, if possible, Gulliver just want to mention to Basil. He wants to ask about if is there anywhere that he knows that if somebody wanted to store.
Yeah,
items
and
of
he
value.
sort of like looks around when you ask that, as if he's a bit shady about it all. And he sort of like leans really forward and close to you, so close that you can actually smell.
Not see his ears.
Yeah, you can smell. The beef stew or the animal stew that he spilt down here at the front of his apron, and he sort of like says, "I'll be in touch, young Gulliver. I know who to deal with." And
Gulliver will thank him.
yeah, and we could probably do that encounter at the beginning of the next session, just before you leave.
No problem.
Okay then. So the next day you all meet at the Hairy Hobgoblin, but not inside, of course. It is open for morning leftovers from the night before and the occasional wine. But you make your way down, as instructed by Lord Drayston, to meet Sylvester McCoon. And if you remember, this is, bless him, what he looks like. You probably don't need to be reminded. And you approach the door with some intrepidation. You know, I don't think it's ever gone really well with Sylvester. I think he normally comes off better in the encounter, but you almost like feel at this moment in time, you know, he hasn't called you. You are going to him, and you feel that you've got the upper hand because you are actually being sent to him. And Bartleby, you might remember that he often talks to you, and less so to you, Gulliver, because he thinks of you as just a boy. And so you arrive at the shop. Who is actually going in? All of you.
Gulliver will be going in.
Okay.
Hengist will go in.
Hasra will go in as well because he wants to refresh his memory with Sylvester.
Yeah, so you sort of like go into.
Is Bria there as well?
No,
right.
nobody's seen her. What?
It's like trying to find her.
I didn't know whether or not we were meeting there or whether or not.
No, you haven't heard anything to the thing, and nobody.
Has anybody seen Bria when we arrived to the city since we've been in the city?
As you say, as you walk towards the shop.
No, I didn't. I did try and find her in the noble area.
Was that before or after you went to call on?
At the same time, Gulliver. I went there to find Briar and stopped.
Hengist, everybody else was working and trying to find out
information.
And you were wooing the nobility.
That's right.
I stopped by.
If I'd known, we were taking personal time.
Did anybody else? Sorry, did you say? Did anybody else see?
Did anybody else see Briar after we arrived to the city?
I didn't.
I didn't.
Inwils, can Hengist make an insight roll?
I think Bartleby has just.
Where did you see Briar? Was she at the market or the church?
Yeah, I saw her at.
You don't need to do that. You've got no skin.
I know. I still feel the sweat underneath my mask.
Help me, I'm drowning. No.
Yeah, I saw her at church. She seemed fine.
Did you ask?
How fine? Is she mighty fine?
I would say so. She seemed friendly.
Did she happen to tell you anything about what she's doing here? Why she's come with us?
Hasra, Hengist, and Gulliver roll insight rolls, please.
The temptation right now.
I need to get my insight up.
No.
Ouch! No, I want to so look that.
I know I would put mine, but no, I'm not going to.
No.
Hengist and Hasra, you're quite happy with Bartleby's explanation. Gulliver, you certainly feel that he is averting. He's not telling you something. And, you know, you've had long talks to Bartleby over religion, and you're obviously, a lot of the time, you're sort of like at the end, back of the party together, etc. And even with the mask on, you notice that, you know, that when he started to talk, he sort of like absently rubbed his head or something like that, or his speech was quite stuttery, and you suddenly think, oh, something's not right here. He's holding something back.
Gulliver will take notice of it, but he's not going to say anything. It's not something that he's going to bring up in the middle of the street or, you know, walk into, you know, going into Sylvester's shop, because he thinks what they're doing now is bit more important than,
Yeah. Okay. That's
Bartleby maybe holding something back. He thinks that it might be something to do with the previous conversation with how he had found out certain information from the church about, how, that Briar wasn't, was adopted.
yeah. Okay. Then, yeah.
Something to do with Amriel's blessing and.
Okay. Yeah.
And the
That's
information that he had found out was completely different. But he's
going
going
to keep it to himself.
Going to speak to Bartleby later on about.
Bartleby, could you just roll your insight roll for me, please?
Yeah. Insight.
Oh yeah, nice roll.
Thank you.
Dead on the
You
heart.
know that I know.
Yeah, you know that you've fooled Hasra and Hengist,
Yeah.
but you sort of like look at Gulliver out of the eye slits of the funeral
And he sort of
mask.
like has his sort of like head to one.
Yeah, and
to one
looking
side.
puzzled, and you just sort of like look towards it. You know that Gulliver knows that you're not saying something, but not sure what it is. And at that point, you arrive at Sylvester's shop and open it and enter it. And as usual, the musty, stuffy smell of the cartographer's shop immediately hits you. You don't think there's been a window open here for some months, if anything else. And Sylvester's in his normal poise, his normal position at the desk, drawing and writing. And you notice the owl that sort of like hangs behind him has lost several of its flight feathers. It's looking a little bit worse for wear. And as always, his discarded pipe is sort of like still sort of like sending smoke up into the room, and it just sort of like hangs around the ceiling. And if you remember, down the side there's all sort of like shelving that's all sort of like square compartments. So there's a whole lot of row scrolls put in, etc. And you can see that he's got his glass of ruby red port out as always, even though you figure it's only about 1 hour past sunrise. And he sort of like is scribing something, and you come in and shut the door, and he says, "At last, I could smell you when you came in."
Gulliver just look around at Hasra.
Sorry, that was me.
Oh, the nomad.
Yes.
Yes.
Wherever I travel, nature travels with me.
Yes, that's not the only thing that travels with you, Master Hasra. He's still sort of
My
like...
apologies, Sylvester.
Were you expecting us?
I'm always expecting trouble. It always seems to come in the form of you. And he looks up, and he sort of like meets your gaze of your face, Bartleby. As always, he's not looking at you, Gulliver, at all. And he says, "Oh my."
It's kind of nice, isn't it, Sylvester?
Were the burns quite hideous then?
Yeah. But Hengist mostly saved me. He put his shield up and it blocked all the
I have to say, you look much better with it on than you ever did with it off.
Thank you, Sylvester. I appreciate it.
Oh, Mr. Bartleby, it was not a compliment.
I took it that way, though. But I believe we have business to attend to here.
Yes. How is Lord Dresden?
He said to pass on his greetings, and He also mentioned that your cousin had been ill. Could I inquire about their health?
Hang on, because I've got to find my reply.
As always.
Say again, sorry. What?
In rude health, as
That's it.
always.
Oh yeah, sorry. He sort of like looks at you, and he looks somewhat puzzled, and he sort of like looks at Hengist, and then looks back at you and says, "In rude health, as always."
Gulliver would just sort of like give a slight nod.
Yeah, and for the first time ever, he sort of like looks at you. It's almost like as if he's gained some respect for you. Almost as if he knows what's been bestowed on you doesn't come lightly, and he's almost like got that little bit more respect for you. And then just as you
Even
think,
though I'm ginger.
yeah, even when you just think he's about to smile at you and almost acknowledge it, he almost like suddenly realizes who you are, and more importantly who he is, and just sort of like goes back to his drawing. So, Master Bartleby, congratulations on your new face attire, but you are not here for idle chit-chat, I assume.
A little bit, but no, mostly we're here for business.
Yes. There is somebody in the town that needs your help.
Who would that be?
I'm surprised you do not know already, Mr. Bartleby, from what I've heard.
Oh no.
Is it Lord Drayston's daughter, Briar?
He sort of like looks up quite shocked and says, "No. It's Calathos, the record keeper, the scribe for Count Bastian."
Calathos?
Why, pray tell, are you mentioning Briar?
Yeah, Gulliver.
Because she's
Yeah, Gulliver.
because she came with us to Lindo.
She came with you?
Yes. We travelled together.
Calathos will be meeting you in 1 hour's time in the local bar or tavern called the Flightless Bird. In 1 hour's time. He seems to be talking to you exactly how I'm talking to you, Gulliver, as if he's almost like puzzled about something. He will meet you there. I have arranged for it to happen. And please serve him well. It is of great urgency and importance. The journey that he is about to send you on. I will mention only 3 words to you to express the urgency of it. Those 3 words will be Chaos Mother and the Chalice. And he goes
It's like Chaos Mother Chalice.
Chaos
Or-
Mother, Chaos Mother, comma, Chalice. Those are the 3 words. And he goes back to writing or drawing, and after a while he looks up and says, "And you're still here because..."
Sylvester, I have one little question for you, if you wouldn't mind, sir. With your great knowledge of maps and the whereabouts of things, do you know perhaps if there's a tower, or what was the tower in the swamp above, north of Lord Dresden's manor house.
You assume I want to talk to you about this because?
Well, it's something that would be of interest to me, and I would take it as a great personal favour if perhaps you had any information about the tower.
Personal favours, Hasra.
Hengist will, if he's standing next to Hasra, will sort of like give him a quick dig in the ribs because it's not a good idea.
He only gives out information for maps. If you don't have a map, he's not going to give you anything.
Oh, I'm very sorry if I've overstepped the mark, sir. But it's something that we discovered while helping Lord Dresden.
On a roll of 4 on his insight roll, he sort of like looks at you and says,
You don't have a map, do you?
he just looks at you and he says, take knowledge, take care of what you say, Master Hasra, and take the advice of your elbow-thumping friend beside you. Our business is concluded here.
I apologize, Sylvester. We will speak soon. Take care.
Hopefully not.
If you do need to reach us, we can normally be found at the hairy hobgoblin.
Bye, Sylvester. I'll meander on out.
Hengist will sort of like nod his head and say, with thanks, and then turn to leave.
So the Flightless Bird is a rather upmarket tavern. It's not like the Hairy Hobgoblin at all. It's actually, can you see the map?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's actually this building here. Okay, and it's actually frequented by the town guards. It's people from Count Bastion's staff use it either as a place to meet their guests, for envoys, etc., to stay over. It has quite a good reputation, and Bartleby, you know of this place. You know, the rooms are very nice, if somewhat overpriced, but there's no watering down of the wine here, and even the meat that they serve is probably actually from an animal that you would normally expect to eat, rather than.
Is it is it the guards that Hengist was in, or is it the guards that were in Lord Bastion's palace? Because there was 2 different ones where
it's
it
not,
didn't look favourably on each other.
Yeah, it's not his personal
Right,
guard.
it wasn't the one that went with us to the.
No, so his so his personal guard never sort of like leave the Count Bastion side.
That's right. Yeah.
These
I
are
didn't know.
these are Hengist's guard,
Former comrade.
Right.
Yeah, and so as you sort of like walk down, it's about 10 o'clock that your meeting has been arranged, and you walk up to the Flightless Bird, and what would you like to do?
As we're walking up there, Gulliver's going to say, perhaps we should have asked Sylvester what Alafos looked like. Have you ever seen him or met him, Bartleby?
Met who? Calathos? I don't believe I have.
No, nobody knows of him at all.
Perhaps we should just go up to the barkeep and say we're here to see Calathos, and then they can direct him to we can direct us to
Was
him.
it Calathos or Alafos?
Calathos.
Oh,
So K-A.
Yeah, I had it written down as Alafos. Sorry.
So is the plan to go in or wait outside or what?
No, I think we'll go in.
Yeah.
Hasra will lead the way. He'll open the door. He'll then survey the situation inside and then choose a suitable table.
Yeah, well, it shows you walk in. You notice that the clientele here are a lot more, shall we say,
Less boisterous.
yeah. and everybody's sat, and you know the maids, the waitresses have a lot less cleavage showing here, which makes it a little bit more respectable. And there looks like there's proper pewter plates being used in a lot of the cases, and you notice this man who, although has grey hair and what appears to be quite a flourish of moustache, no sort of like beard, just a very firm and well-grown moustache, who he has grey hair, but he doesn't seem to look that old, so a bit like Philip Schofield, if you know who that is. And he seems to be sat at a table, and he seems to be very upright, and he seems to be very smartly dressed, but not richly. He is smart. There's a slight difference, and when you come in, he sort of like almost like sort of like recognizes you as who you are, but recognizes that you are obviously here to meet him. Maybe Sylvester has said that there'll be four battle-worn people coming to meet him, and as he comes in, he sort of like stands up and sort of like walks very upright over to you all, and he says, are you Sylvester's friends?
Yes, we are.
Right. Yes, I have a certain room or compartment ordered for us to conduct our business. This way, please. And he sort of like,
as they head across with him, Gulliver's just going to have a look around the tavern, see how many other people there are in it, and whether or not anybody's taking particular notice of.
No, nobody seems to be taking notice of him or you. There is quite a lot of town guards here, and the odd one now and again is looking round at Hengist as he sort of like comes across, because Hengist is very hard.
Ex-guard Hengist.
Yes, and you know, and you sort of like Calathos takes you over to a certain. It's almost like a corner of the room where there's a circular table and enough seats for you all, and you sit down, and the waitress sort of like brings over sort of like enough goblets for you all, and some red ruby wine, and she sort of like pours it all for you and for each of you, and then Calathos turns to her and says, "That'll be all, Mary." And she goes, "Oh yes, yes, sir," and sort of like ruffles off in a blur of petticoats.
Gulliver doesn't partake in the wine.
No, and he says, Calathos says, "Right, I will get straight to the point. I am a scribe in Lord Count Bastion's service. I'm in charge of his personal library. And there's been a most unfortunate event that, although it may appear from the onset that I am somewhat responsible for, this is not the case at all. It would appear that two gentlemen, I trust that we have each other's confidence at this point."
Of course.
Yes, without saying.
Well, you haven't said any.
That is good. So, yes, some days ago, 2 weeks now, two gentlemen appeared at the library of the royal records of Count Bastion, with sealed requests to enter the library. When I say sealed requests, I hope you understand that they carried the seal of Count Bastion himself in proof that they were allowed access to it. I was somewhat suspicious, and not only that the Count had provided these, shall we say, less than noble men access to the library, but also at a somewhat strange hour. But it is not up to us to understand the Count's thoughts or actions. Anyway, they were in the library from about 10 o'clock at night, throughout the evening and late night and into the early morning. I sadly fell asleep and was only woken shortly after sunrise when the two gentlemen left. I was somewhat suspicious and, shall I say, investigated further. It turns out that the seal was false. The Count had not given permission to any scholars to enter the library at all. I then kept on looking, and I returned back to the library and to try to ascertain what they were actually looking for. I was somewhat shocked when I noticed that their search had involved several tomes of ancient history. It talked of an ancient temple that was being used by the Chaos Mother, worshippers of the Chaos Mother, and where allegedly there is a temple. It is not known what this temple is or whether or not it even still exists. However, from reading up on the text that the two scholars were reading, it became obvious that the location of the temple is somewhat, shall we say, hidden. I'm not too sure whether or not they found out the next piece of information, for it was my own investigation that led me to discover that there lies a clue to this Chaos Mother's temples and the chalice's location. I am somewhat reluctant, but as you can see from my garb, I am not somebody who can venture out of the protection of these walls. And so my friend Sylvester suggested that I contacted you. We found out that you had been to Lord Dresden's manor, and I sent a message for you to contact him. It would appear that the location of the temple is not known, or we hope is still not known, because I found that there is a clue to its location in the Lucius villa that lies a short distance away from Lindo. I am not too sure that the scholars found this information out or not, but I am very clear that the library is one book short of its full complement.
Could you tell us what information was in the book? What was it pertaining?
Yes, from what I can gather, it was in the rather shady section of the library, the place that we very rarely venture into. All I can tell you, was about a time long ago when, shall we say, the Chaos Mother was somewhat more active.
And of the two people that bought the seal, what can you tell us about them? Any descriptions or notifying marks?
They were quite normal, robed with heavy robes. It was very difficult to see anything that was beneath their robes, and even their...
What colour were the robes?
They were brown, I think.
Thank you.
And did they speak to you?
Yes, in with quite heavy accents of some description that I am not too sure about. It was quite strange.
But they were male.
Oh yes, when they lowered their cowls, they were definitely male. Short cropped hair of unknown colour, quite angular features, quite sinister looking. It really made my blood go cold. Oh yes.
And since that meeting, have you seen them again?
No, they left via the northern gate. This one here. Shortly after dawn, the guards told me about that, on horseback.
Did they leave alone?
Together, and riding with some purpose. I have discussed this situation with the Count. After he lost his previous council advisor, I am somewhat reluctant to hide secrets from him, but he has granted me the power to hire investigators. Sylvester, my friend, recommended yourselves, so I am happy to provide for you 4,000 silver pieces for the return of the chalice. I am happy to give you 400 of that up front for any provisions you may need.
Do you know the location of the villa? Was it, you say it's north of here, I assume?
Yes, that is.
Sorry, did he say he wanted for the return of the chalice, not the book?
Return of the chalice, yeah.
Right, thank you.
He says, yes. He says, if you go north out of, well, slightly northwest out of Lindo, taking the road to Eubin Falls. I'm not too sure whether or not you know the place.
We do.
We
Yes.
are aware of the
Anyway,
place.
about halfway between there and Eubin Falls, there is a road that crosses the river and heads backwards on itself across arable farmland. Lucius's villa is, well, it should be down there, but I have to warn you, we have lost contact with the villa some decades ago, and now there is always only rumours of banditry and wild men. It is for that reason that we have chosen an experienced troop like yourselves. So you should be able to see the map at the moment, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah, right, yes, I can see it, yeah.
So this is the bridge. If you remember, Mr. Bartleby had a rather nasty encounter with the farmer's hut along that road.
Yeah.
And that was the farmer's land, that the arable land that he's talking about, and it is assumed that that road will continue and go to eventually locate Lucius's villa, and then that's where you'll be able to find it. And Caliphos turns round to you once more and says, so do we have a bargain?
I think we do, but my stepping point is, you say you lost contact with the villa decades ago. Why did nobody go look for it, or to make sure it was safe?
Families move on. Sometimes we do send people out. Sometimes there are worse things in the local countryside than bandits, creatures, as you can probably guess. It looks from your garb that you are not one of the town, of the urban setting.
No, which is why I asked, because if we lost contact with a yurt or a village, we'd go and make sure that village or yurt was okay. But yes, I understand. If you send people out to have a look and they've come back and said, "I'll not come back," yes.
Yes, and since the attack on Lindo, we are very reluctant to send
No, I
people
understand.
away to ascertain the location or whereabouts, or even the current inhabitants of a somewhat lost villa.
No, I agree. Yes.
Of course, gentlemen, if you prove yourself loyal and honest, then there might be other rewards. Sugarworker, can you just read Discord in 1 second?
Do you want me to answer in Discord?
Yes, please. Yeah. He sort of like takes a sip of his wine. Okay, and he looks around all of you and sort of like says, "So, gentlemen, do we have an understanding?"
Hasra will look at everybody and wait for a silent nod, hopefully.
Yes. Bartleby is with the crew on this one. Let's do it.
And when it's sort of like the agreement's made, he sort of like
Gulliver
nods.
just wants to say something. He wants to say, but what about the book that was stolen? Do you not want that back?
It is assumed that the scholars or the imposters have it. Hopefully you may be able to track them down and the book as well. The 4,000 silver coins should be sufficient. I'm sure if you prove your worth more, I'm sure we can provide more substantial coinage if that's what you desire. I will, of course, have to talk to the Count. And do we have an agreement?
Gulliver will wait until they...
But I'm sorry, forgive me. Can we talk amongst ourselves for a moment?
He sort of like lets out rather a deep sigh. And he leans back and he says, "Be my guest."
I'm going to lean over to Gulliver and quietly whisper in his ear as quiet as I can. I didn't hear any mention of the chalice being stolen by these two people when all I had was a book being taken. What is this chalice we are supposed to find and return? Or am I mishearing things?
You're mishearing things, I think.
I am. All right, sorry, I am.
Yeah, so basically...
So they went to the library, looked at books,
No,
stole a chalice.
Yeah, no, they went to the library and they found in a book that Calathos then read that it described the location of a temple to the Chaos Mother that held the chalice. Okay, and
so right, they haven't stolen the chalice, but they want us to sorry.
And that book did not say about the location of it; it just described it. So there's another book that has disappeared.
Yeah. No. I've got it all. That's fine. That's fine. When he said chalice, I thought they still
Yeah.
a chalice as well.
So
Yeah, that's
it
fine.
could
The
be.
only reason that Gulliver was questioning about the book was because he's a scholar and
And an acrobat.
yeah, and Gulliver would have thought he would have been more concerned about the book than retrieving the book. To a scholar, books are everything.
That's
So
right.
retrieving the book would be sort of like, it would have been almost like the opposite way around, sort of like, oh, can you get the book back? Oh, and the chalice. But he was sort of like the opposite way around. He mentioned the chalice, but not the book, and that's why Gulliver was a bit intrigued about it.
But the same side of things, he's working on orders from his master, so the master would be like chalice
From the
first.
count, yeah.
Count, yeah. Right, sorry.
Yeah,
So
okay then. So,
I would be in.
and when everybody's agreed, Carathos summons a rather smart-looking scribe, a younger scribe, over, obviously an apprentice, who brings over a pouch which contains 400 silver pieces, which he hands over to whoever wants it. It's about 10 o'clock in the morning, and he says, I suggest you try to leave as quickly as possible. The scholars, he almost like spits out the words, has obviously got quite a head start on us. We are not too sure whether or not they actually found the location of the temple in the book that is missing, or whether they too know of the Lucius Villa and have headed that way now. Gentlemen, the chase is on.
Forgive me, Master Calathos, but you mentioned that they departed on horseback.
Yes.
Will 400 silver pieces be enough to get us horses?
He sort of like lets out a sigh. Sorry, Sylvester spoke that you were professionals. I wasn't aware that you had no horses. I will get some, make some available for you. I am assuming that you can all ride sufficiently.
Horses like me.
You have our deepest thanks.
So your ride is a standard skill.
Yeah.
So you should
Yeah.
all
Oh,
have
it
it
is
of
indeed.
various
Yeah.
description.
87.
Okay. So
87.
Yeah. Can you not ride?
I can ride 43, but
Oh, right.
he's a nomad from the steppes. He
Obviously
doesn't
they
ride.
don't
He
have
walks.
horses.
it says on my t-shirt.
So yeah, so the you sort of like make your way back to the various places, and then prepare yourself for the start of the next adventure to head off into the wild. So please do have a think about what you would like to buy before you go. That's important. Just before we leave next time, Gulliver, I know you need to finish something off. Which is absolutely fine. Hengist, there's probably something that you wish to do as well, which we can do just at the beginning. And apart from that, I think that'll be a good place to leave it until next time. The only thing that I will mention is Bartleby, you're not too sure of it, but just as you return to your church, you get this unnerving feeling that somebody might be watching you, and as you quickly glance away around, you suddenly noticed Briar definitely scoot into a doorway or an alleyway and disappear. And Hasra,
Bartleby's got a stalker.
Hasra, you're not too sure, but it almost like feels as if your pendant was softly vibrating against your chest. And we will leave it there in preparation for next week. So hope you enjoyed tonight's role-playing session, and that you have enjoyed progressing your characters' stories on a little bit. Thank you to Maxilators for your 20 bitties there.
Yeah, thanks,
gone
Matt.
into the
Thanks.
hope you really enjoyed it. If you've missed any of tonight's session, then
How dare you?
how dare you?
Yes.
Where were you?
We've tried so hard. If you have missed any of it, then please be aware that I will be uploading it to my webpage and YouTube. And if you missed last week's and the synopsis, then you can find it over on my webpage, inwils.co.uk.
The most amazing episode last week, so please watch.
Yes, it was. There was a bit. It's interesting. I don't know if you've seen it, but I split it up now into 4 parts. And then I do like an adventure summary. And the adventure story is player's introduction, the story so far, the party journey back from the Frog Fen, a clever pincer movement,
That's right.
and back at the manor, and then experience rolls and updates, so you can jump in. And then there's 4 parts underneath it. And everybody seems to be laughing in the thumbnail, but I've cut Gulliver off.
Yeah, because I wasn't. I don't laugh.
Yeah,
You never laugh.
I don't do this for humour.
Yeah.
No.
So, does anybody have any announcements that they would like to make for the forthcoming week?
Yes, I killed my
I don't
butchers.
think I do. Thank you.
And Mr. Pickles?
No announcements from this guy.
Okay then. I will be back streaming tomorrow at 2 o'clock GMT time, when I'll be venturing forth with my Dragon Knight, Magica Dragon Knight, and doing a whole load of dailies. Don't forget that you can go over to my YouTube and sub there. Really grateful for anybody who can do that, and I hope you have enjoyed tonight's episode. If you go over to my YouTube channel, if you want to learn more about the rules and how things work in Mythras, then there's a series of videos up there that gives you all the information, with a character generation one on its way. Hope you enjoyed tonight's session as much as I did, and hopefully the players did. And with that, I will say to each and every one of you, please remember to be who you are and say what you think, because the people who mind don't matter, and the people who matter don't mind. Have fun, guys, and we will catch you all later. And until then, happy RPGing. Thanks for coming along, guys. See you later. Bye.